Beer. When my multi-million-dollar property portfolio was crumbling in the global financial crisis, I'll admit, I turned to beer a little bit too much for, well, comfort. But in making a successful comeback to a 6 property portfolio, what got me back was, at the same time, in the same hand. I'm not talking about liquid courage. Drinking is the purpose of buying a bottle of beer. It's the end goal, the desired outcome. But how do you get to this desired outcome in the most efficient and effective way possible? Nah. And if getting rich is your end goal, your desired outcome, how can you get rich in the most efficient and effective way through property investment? You see, even though each property investor will have their own version of what rich means to them, I think we can all agree that rich or riches in the majority of scenarios is an abundance of money and assets. Money and assets greater than what you really need. Whether it be financial freedom or money just to buy more beer, broken teeth and financial ruin are testament that both processes are not easy. That is, unless you understand and harness the power of this. If you stay until the end of this video, you will discover the 3 foundational steps to why leverage is regarded as one of the most important concepts to understand to getting rich in property investment. I'm rich, bitch! And why leverage is the beverage of successful property investors. Who was that? If you've got a thirst to acquire the understanding behind the concept of leverage in property investment, then congratulations, you're in the right place. There will be no theory today because I've had to build a property portfolio twice. So I can give you true insight which will help you avoid the same mistakes that I made the first time round. To ensure you get it right and it's all smooth investment sailing. The word leverage dates back to 1724 and was originally used to describe the action of a lever. By 1824, by which time the Industrial Revolution was well underway, the scope of the word had expanded to include the power of the lever and therefore the obtaining of a mechanical advantage. The use of the word leverage in these times, in figurative terms, is a method for the accomplishment of a purpose. Just like leveraging a bottle opener so that you can drink a beer. But with property investment, it's not so much mechanical leverage, but financial leverage. Borrowing other people's money to make you money. So the purpose of using leverage, the calculation would look like this. The return on investment from a property greater than interest charged for borrowing that money. Now I've deliberately used the word renting initially, not borrow or loan, because borrow and loan are such commonly used words that it flies under the radar a little bit. It doesn't truly depict what you're about to really, truly own. Yes, you will have control and ownership of investment property, but you will also be the proud owner of now probably a lot of debt. Now before we go any further, I'm just going to add here, I'm going to take the tax implications out of all the scenarios and address that in an upcoming video because we need to today just get the foundations right before we go deep diving. Which brings us to foundational step 1. This debt that you now own is called a mortgage, and whether it be 7, 15, 25 or more years, you will have gone into an agreement with the borrower, which will outline how and when you'll get the money back to the borrower. It's kind of like a lease in property investment where the tenant fills out a lease which outlines how and when they're going to get the money to you and then vacate. No big deal then. It's not hard to break a lease. Can't be too hard to skip out on the mortgage. If you don't think mortgage is a serious matter, maybe you should take a look into the origins of the word mortgage, which is made up of the Spanish word mortir, which means death, and gage, which means engagement. So mortgage quite literally translates to engagement until death. If you've got a mortgage, hands up who knew they were signing an engagement until death. Who knew? Sure you did. Hey honey, I'm just in the kitchen. What am I doing? I am signing an engagement until death. You're alright with that, yeah? Don't call me a idiot. Don't sign it. But what's the worst thing that could happen? So a lot of debt, a mortgage, which is an engagement until death, Why the hell would we do this? Which brings us to foundational step number 2. Understand what makes leverage in property investment so powerful. To demonstrate the power of leverage, we simply need to run the numbers. And as this part contains mathematics, we're going to have to pick up the pace. Let's say you're looking at buying your first investment property and you have saved up $100,000. Now, if you were not going to use leverage, not going to borrow someone else's money, the maximum purchase price of a property you could buy, excluding startup costs, is $100,000. Now, let's assume you get a 5% rental return on that $100,000 from the cash flows of your investment property. This would mean you would get $5,000 at the end of the year using the whole $100,000 of your own money. But if you were to use that same $100,000 as a deposit and then borrowed $500,000 to buy a $600,000 property, your return on that money will now be 6 times that $100,000. The same 5% rental return will now work off the $600,000 that by the end of the year will have made you $30,000. We're rich! Well, actually no. Good start, but we're not rich yet. Remember, you borrowed money, and during this year, you would have had to have made interest payments. So out of that 5% cash flow for the year, let's say you're just left with 1.7% net. So out of that 5% cash flow, or the $30,000, let's say you're left with just 1.7% net, after all interest charges and costs are paid. That doesn't sound very good. 1.7%. 1.7%, yes, but that's 1.7% on $600,000, which leaves you $10,200, which is twice as much as you got in the example which didn't use leverage. The perfect scenario is kind of like a perfect pokey or slot machine. So you're at the pub and you're in front of this perfect pokey machine and you borrow $1 from your mate and you put in the $1 and it gives you back 3. You give your mate back $1, give him 50 cents for his help, and you keep $1.50. And remember, you've got to give your mate back his $1, all right? And probably pretty quickly because you're in a pub and beer is near. Who would have thought that buying other people's money, which is often referred to as opium... You got some opium. No, I said OPM, other people's money, not opium. Oh yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, see you, mate. We're in an airport too. As I said, who would have thought that borrowing other people's money could create you money? But still, $10,200 is an okay start, but it's not the rich money that we need to be making to appease the video's title. So we need to keep diving deeper into financial leverage, which brings us to foundational step number 3. Understand that with property investment, there are 2 returns you can get, both of which can be leveraged. That's right, there are just 2 processes that give you 2 results which make up your return on investment, and these 2 results, cash flows and capital growth, can both be leveraged. Our $600,000 property with the $100,000 deposit by the end of the second year has achieved 5% capital growth for both years. That means your $100,000 has grown into $161,500 and you now have $161,500 of equity. But remember, we've still got the cash flows too. So if we go back to the first year cash flows, it was $10,200. And then in the second year, let's just say another $10,200 comes. You have now turned your $100,000 into $161,500 of equity, and if you haven't spent it on more beer, you now have a cash pile from the end of those 2 years of $10,200 plus $10,200. By the end of the second year, you have turned that initial $100,000 into an additional $81,900. Now we're truly scratching the surface on how to get rich in property investment. Now, if you wish to buy a second investment property to keep things rolling, I think we'd all agree that property investors just starting out may not be aware that you don't have to save for a second deposit to buy a second investment property if your first investment property has generated equity. Now, getting back to the example, if you've got $161,500 in equity, you can simply go to the bank where they will check your cash flows, your serviceability, and if it's all good, they will let you pull the equity out of the first investment property to buy your second investment property.
Good afternoon, passengers.
Boarding call. Almost time to board my plane. Okay, so this would be a good time to tell you that this is video 1 of a series that I'm going to do on leverage. Okay, so this is a foundational video, all right, and I'll put it into a playlist called Leverage or Leverage-Capital Growth or something of that nature. Like all of my videos, I'm just going to get the hard topics and keep breaking them down till it's easy to understand and guide you step by step all the way until you become a leverage expert in property investment. That's the final boarding call. I've really got to board this plane. I'm flying down to Mexico for the next video. Things I do for you guys so that you can understand property as an investment. Hola, ¿qué tal? Si viera este video, haga clic en el botón me gusta y suscribirse. Y haz clic en el video de aquí para continuar tu aventura. Muy bien, gracias. Hasta la vista.